What's up, guys? We are back a little bit later in the week than usual this time. So we decided to change up the content for you. Instead of doing our usual recap, injuries, blah, 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 what we're going to do is hit you with some of the more crucial stuff for this week. We're going to do starts, sits, streams, and some guys that we like to break out going forward, guys. So enjoy the episode.
Wow, guys, week 6 is in the books. We are now on to week 7, and I don't know about you, man, but the pressure is really on for me. I'm in a situation right now where this is must win, and I got to get every lineup and every spot in my lineup correct this week, or I'm scared I'm going to lose. Seasons are on the verge of being made or broken in these next few weeks, and it's right in the middle of bye weeks, and that's not helping the situation at all. So I feel the best way to help our listeners would be to discuss some start sits for the week.
Yeah, and just to touch on how my season's going so far, as I feel like in the beginning when we first started the show, we kind of wanted to, update people on how things are going. I am 1-5 in our league. It's been rough. I'm top 5 in scoring, which isn't spectacular, but it's there. Saquon Barkley basically just ended my season, more or less. So I really didn't even look at fantasy much this week on Sunday. We were at the Jets-Colts game, so I enjoyed myself there. Saw Andrew Luck throw a pick 6, have him at quarterback. Between that and Saquon Barkley, I knew it was pretty much over. So, on that note, why don't we talk about helping you guys out, because my season's helpless. And we could start with the quarterback starts for this week. You could start off.
I think my number one kind of sort of contrarian, not high-end quarterback start of the week would be Baker Mayfield versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think my number one quarterback of the week that should be started across in all formats without question would be Matt Ryan versus the Giants.
That's fair, and I do think it's important to note when you do a start sit, right? So you're never going to see the easy starts on this. What do we always say? We say play your studs. You're not going to see your studs on here. Unless it's for a sit, maybe you'll see your studs on here. In a very, very rare case, and it's only because it's week 7 and we have this much of a sample size. But this is more low-key guys. Jared Goff is a guy I have at quarterback this week against San Francisco.
I'll tell you what, man. I hate to cut you off there, but it's something that's worth noting. Jared Goff, when you say start your studs, Jared Goff is on pace for 5,000 yards this season.
That's after this past week. He only threw like 200.
Yeah, that's scary.
This San Francisco team secondary has been really, really bad this year. In fact, the defense as a whole has been terrible this year. Last week, Todd Gurley had more touches than Jared Goff had throws. And they know they could throw the ball all over San Francisco. I think this week they're going to try to end that one fast. I think it's going to come through the air. And if the Niners compete, listen, they haven't allowed less than 28 points once. Or rather, they have allowed it once. It was week 1 they allowed less than 28 points. I believe that was to the Minnesota Vikings, who they allowed 24 to. Other than that, everyone destroys this San Francisco defense. I expect nothing different from Jared Goff.
Yeah, I think that game flow is more to the benefit of Todd Gurley than it is Jared Goff. I actually don't have Jared Goff in my sit section, but I was close to putting him there because of it. I think the matchup on paper is better than the matchup on Sunday. I think it's going to be the Todd Gurley show, but listen, you might be right.
That could come through the air. It's Todd Gurley.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not refuting the Todd Gurley show.
There doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason why it happens.
Just 200 all-purpose yards it is.
Another quarterback that I really love this week is Joe Flacco versus the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, cool. We could collectively talk about this. He was my next one, too. This is a good one.
Yeah, dude, because the Saints, this is a battle of the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL and the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. This game is 2 heavyweights, and call me blasphemous, but a potential Super Bowl.
There's nothing blasphemous about it. When the Ravens have a defense like this, they are a tough team to stop. They have talented group of receivers, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at a guy like Willie Snead, who we're going to get to later. He's one of my starts for wide receiver, spoiler alert. But I think it's a really good. I think it's a really good matchup. I think there's a lot that's going to go on in this game. I could see this game over/under pushing over 60.
Yeah, and well, here's the thing: is that not only that the Saints are horrible against the pass. There's only a few teams that allow more yards per game than them. They're at 313 yards per game, and they're allowing just about. I'm going to round up, guys. they're allowing 35 points per game to wide receivers, and that's in standard scoring.
That's ridiculous.
Flacco's throwing it 44 times a game. That's more than everyone in the league, not named Andrew Luck with his limp shoulder. And of Joe Flacco's 264 attempts, 145 of them have gone to the wide receivers. And the Saints have been, again, miserable against wide receivers, miserable against the pass. This is what the Ravens like to do. That defense, that offense matches up perfectly for a big day from Joe Flacco.
Yeah, 100%. And also for Drew Brees.
Yeah, Drew Brees is matchup proof. He's the stud. Listen, most quarterbacks, I tell you to sit them against the Ravens. Drew Brees,
You can.
no, just keep him in, guys. It's fine. It's really fine.
You know what I like about this game? I always love revenge games.
Mhm.
I always love elite teams in elite conferences. And I love veteran quarterbacks.
Yeah, because whatever people have to say about Flacco, at the end of the day, you know Flacco, if you need him to make a drive, isn't going to sit there like a deer in the headlights. He's
Been there, done that,
He's
bro.
been there, done that. He is calm, cool, and collected. Just maybe not always the most accurate, but that is what it is. Another start I have for this week is Andy Dalton. This is a big start this week. Maybe I should have said this one first, guys. Nobody respects this 4-2 Bengals team. Nobody at all. No one's even recognizing it. Everyone talks about the AFC North. They're talking about the Ravens. They're talking about the Steelers. No one talks about them. They get a game versus Kansas City, who everybody is talking about. Chiefs are allowing 364 yards per game to quarterbacks this year, and Andy Dalton, not knowing to many, has actually had 2+ passing touchdowns in every game but one game this year.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's a shoo-in for close to 300 yards, if not more, and 2 touchdowns in this game against the Chiefs, and that's at a minimum.
Well, I also have Andy Dalton as a start this week for many of the same reasons you said. Also, A.J. Green is probably, and by probably I mean almost certainly, going to, once again, show everybody in the league why he's an elite receiver when he's healthy. And a game like this in prime time against somebody that could potentially they be seeing in the AFC playoffs.
Yeah, this is gonna be a big time show here. No one respects this Bengals team, and I'll tell you, if they get beat pretty bad by the Chiefs, no one will respect this Bengal team still. But I think they're going to put the league on notice today because I don't think they're a joke. I don't think Andy Dalton's a joke. We're not too far removed from him having a near MVP type campaign, and they look good this year. That division looks real good this year. How about your sits? Who do you have sitting at quarterback?
Mariota versus the Chargers.
Okay. What are your reasons for that, out of curiosity?
It's just I can't with that offense is so
Terrible?
stagnant.
Terrible? Yeah.
I'm not going to use the word terrible because when push comes to shove, they're able to win games. The Titans are 500. The Chargers are 4-2. It's just that team wins through defense. They're a top 5 defense. They love to run the ball. Mariota's a game manager, very disrespected game manager. That he's honestly one of the better. It's just that doesn't equate to fantasy success.
No, it
So
does
he's
not.
a start. Honestly,
Sit.
he should be
A
on
sit.
your waiver.
He's a
yeah,
sit.
Yes,
Yeah.
my mistake. And honestly, he should be on your waiver wire.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an easy one to say. Maybe not easy for some. Listen, the Cowboys just scored 40 points on the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. Let's not be fooled by that, guys. The Jaguars are still the best defense in the NFL. Sit Deshaun Watson this week. Doesn't even have the benefit of being at home in this game. You just don't start You don't start guys against the Jaguars if you have a choice, especially at quarterback. There's probably almost always a better option at streamer than the quarterback versus the Jaguars, unless it's like Drew Brees or something like that.
Who you don't sit versus the Jaguars.
You just don't sit Drew Brees versus anyone. It just is what it is. Deshaun Watson, though, I think you do sit this week in Jacksonville.
You see, I stayed away from that because it was a divisional matchup. I stayed away from that because of the disrespect Jalen Ramsey threw DeAndre Hopkins' way. We might see 10 receptions, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and that makes Deshaun Watson relevant. However, I do see your point. The Jaguars' defense is fully loaded. They've had their backs against the wall 2 weeks in a row. They just made noise on that team by acquiring Carlos Hyde, sending a message to the roster that this is not acceptable.
And hopefully keeping the defense off the field as much as possible because Bortles ain't doing that for him.
Well, Hyde's not playing.
Hyde's not playing.
He's already not playing. They confirmed he will not play this week.
That's very interesting that they traded for Carlos Hyde. Leonard Fournette owners. No one said anything officially yet, but that's a terrible sign. I hadn't said this I had a thing with Fournette from the start. Guys, I'm not sure how many games he actually gets in this year. Leonard Fournette, I'll be 100% honest
Well,
with you.
he's supposed to return after the bye week.
It's like week 10.
Yeah.
And then at that point, who knows if it lingers.
Well, here's the thing. If he hits his stride by week 13, week 14, and you can buy low on Leonard Fournette and stash him on your bench, Leonard Fournette can bring you to a fantasy championship. But for week 7 alone, you can't even play him because he's out. But
Probably just stay away from the Jaguars overall in fantasy right now. Their offenses look pretty bad. For at least these past 2 weeks.
I'm going to get to that later. There's somebody I want to discuss on that team. A couple people, actually.
All right. Well, I had thrown Deshaun Watson as a sit at quarterback. And how about you right now?
Jameis Winston versus the Cleveland Browns is a sit this week.
Mm-hmm.
Jameis Winston, let me tell you all of this right now. The Jameis Winston owners. That massive fantasy performance that he had last week was an aberration and a benefit of his matchup. That is not what will happen week in and week out, and he will be exposed by the Cleveland Browns. Peyton Barber will not get anything going against the Cleveland Browns defense, and Jameis Winston will be forced to be one-dimensional. What happens when Jameis Winston is one-dimensional? 2 things happen. Mike Evans gets 15 targets. Jameis Winston throws 3 interceptions.
So that would be your bold prediction. 15 targets for Mike Evans and 3 interceptions for Jameis Winston.
Yes.
Write it in Sharpie, guys. That's a real thing. I also think you should be sitting Dak Prescott this week. Not sure exactly who's starting him, but last week happened. It wasn't great, but it was versus the Jaguars. Guys, without Cole Beasley, he did next to nothing. He does have Cole Beasley this week, but I think that Cowboys-Jaguars game from last week was pretty flukish overall. I still think the Cowboys' offense sucks. Still don't have any receivers. And Washington has been solid against the pass this year. Not shut down, but good enough to ensure that Dak Prescott does not have a productive fantasy football day. So sit Dak Prescott.
And kind of sticking with that game, because there's something I want to discuss about that game. If you're in a pick'em pool, all Alex Smith does is win, baby, win. The Washington Redskins, I don't care that it's a divisional matchup. I know that's the golden rule. You don't take divisional matchup games. You let somebody else do it, and you just hope they lose in survivor pools and pick'em pools and everything of the sort. But
you're taking Alex Smith at home.
I'm taking the bad man Alex Smith. Put this in Sharpie as well.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Redskins will be a playoff team in the NFC.
I said this from the start of the season. I said there is very good reason to believe that for no reason they could slip into the wild card.
What if they might just win the division?
Well, that's the next.
They're first place right now.
Listen, they're not going to get the bye regardless, so they're still going to be in the wild card round.
Well, of course they will be in the wild card round, but that's a home playoff game.
Yeah, and at that point,
not that that's ever benefited
I
Alex
was about to
Smith.
say Alex Smith has just done great with those. So do you have another sit at quarterback or no?
I'm just going to throw it out there because he is starting to build a fantasy... Excuse me, folks. He is starting to build a trend in being fantasy successful, and it will not continue this week.
Mm-hmm.
CJ Beathard is not a start this week. He is a sit.
I thought about putting that down. I didn't quite. I just left it as was, but I looked and I was like, oh boy, hopefully no one...
Well, to your point earlier about Goff and the 49ers' putrid pass defense, that has done nothing but help CJ Beathard's fantasy relevance.
Mm-hmm.
CJ Beathard's actually, for the past 3 weeks, he's been a QB 1.5. He has been in that 12 to 20 range constantly through this stretch. And if not higher, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but there was one...
He's played well.
Yeah.
He's played well.
Just this week, you can't... It's the Rams, and it's the 49ers.
And it is CJ Beathard, as much as you may be a fan of him.
He's Kirk Cousins 2.0.
That's what I'm saying. One more sit at quarterback for this week with an interesting stat I found. Did you know that the Dolphins have picked off quarterbacks more than they've let them throw for touchdowns this year?
Did we both put Matt Stafford as sits? Because I had the same thing.
Yeah. Miami has more picks than passing touchdowns allowed this year. Put that in perspective. This is a must-win for Miami at home. And tidbit, I think after the bye week, Detroit might try something a little bit different on offense. I don't think Matt Stafford's going to have big numbers this week at all against Miami. Actually, I don't think he passes 230 yards. And at that point, hopefully he throws for more than one touchdown if you happen to start him. I think you have to sit him versus Miami this week.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to sit him. Listen, the Lions are an 8-8 team. They are an average, mediocre franchise.
They do
year
8-8
in and year
things.
out. And 8-8 things beat 8-8 teams. 8-8 team versus 8-8 team. Sometimes I will just take the better quarterback. In this game head-to-head, it is Brock Osweiler versus Matt Stafford. So in that regard, I say start Stafford. But overall, from fantasy perspective, you got to sit him. Like, he's not going to have a great game. Like, he's just not. They're going to rely on Kerryon Johnson. They're going to feed their backs.
I think so as well.
Like, Minka Fitzpatrick's a bad boy in that Miami secondary. To your point about their picks, that guy should seriously be considered for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I agree with that. So I'd say that would be everything that I have for the quarterbacks. Everyone else is in between or must start. You do that math yourself. So let's go to running backs. I'll give my start right here. Tevin Coleman versus the New York Giants.
You know, that's interesting because the Giants have a pretty decent run defense.
The Giants are horrible. Tevin Coleman has not done what people think he's going to do this year. I will grant people that. But the Giants on prime time are just the games in which people have breakout games. The yards per carry isn't pretty this year against the Giants. It is just under 4 yards per carry, but I think Tevin Coleman's got more than one touchdown in him this week. I think they're going to have plenty of situations where they're within 5 yards. I think Atlanta's going to drive up and down the field, and I just think I think Tevin Coleman is going to be a product of the Atlanta offense versus the Giants. I think he's going to have a big game versus the Giants. It's a little bit of gut. They've had a decent run defense, but they're also a complete embarrassment.
Okay, stop there. The Giants are not an embarrassment. The only thing that is an embarrassment about the New York Giants is that college-level offensive line. That is the only thing that is bad about that team. You want to talk about the Giants' defense. The Giants' defense is getting screwed by the fact that they're on the field a lot. While that does nothing to dispute your claim about Tevin Coleman, I'm more defending the Giants as a franchise and this movement of their team and the general disrespect that a lot of fantasy and regular, like, just football fans have been throwing the Giants' way. The Giants are loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. To call them an embarrassment, I think, is an overstatement. It's just that offensive line has done nothing to help either side of the ball. And because of that, I don't think Tevin Coleman will be the beneficiary.
Here's the thing, is I think Tevin Coleman's an elite running back talent, actually.
Really?
I do. I also thought that about Derrick Henry, but Tevin Coleman's actually shown it in the past on plenty of occasions. The Giants are just one of those teams this year. I'm not saying they don't have talent, man. They're the butt of the joke this year. It is what it is. When something is to go wrong, the Giants are one of the teams it happens against. Yeah. I think Tevin Coleman's going to have the game that he just hasn't had yet this year. I think when else, if not against the Giants on primetime football.
Yeah. So, remember how we were just talking about the Lions and the Dolphins game?
Yeah.
How we were talking about how that'll just be a potential pick fest? Not pick fest, I'm exaggerating slightly. But my starts at running back are Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake. The Detroit Lions are absolutely pitiful against the run. They were the worst run defense in the league for the opening stretch of the season.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where they stand now, but I know they're at least the bottom 26.
They're actually allowing almost 6 yards per carry.
That's terrible.
And I don't have either of them at start because I'm not comfortable picking one or the other.
I think in standard you have to go Gore, but I think in PPR you can go Drake. If Drake didn't have that fumble at the one last year, they gave him that goal line carry. I know it's tough to trust that after a fumble literally just happened that cost the guy a game, but I do like Kenyon Drake this week. If I were to make my defense for the men.
It's not. Listen, they're going to run the ball efficiently this week. Just that backfield scares me because I can't comfortably recommend either side. Speaking of that game, though, I have Kerryon Johnson as a start. The Dolphins, along with an effective pass defense, have a below-average run defense. Not only are they allowing more than 100 rushing yards per game this year, the Dolphins, but they're actually allowing 7 receptions to running backs as well. Kerryon Johnson's very underrated at the backfield. He's always good for a couple. I think after this bye week, I have no inside sources on this. I think Detroit did a little bit of soul searching. I think they know they have a real talent here at running back. I think they're going to feed Kerryon Johnson against the Dolphins. I think this is the week. I think this is the Kerryon Johnson week right here, that he bursts onto the fantasy map. I don't think they were intentionally saving him, but I think with the bye week, I think they're going to look at the situation and just be like, this guy is giving us a lot of production, which he is. He's been incredible this year. So I think Kerryon Johnson breaks out against Miami this week.
Yeah. I think Shady McCoy has that game this week against the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Anderson is playing quarterback for the Buffalo Bills this week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, he is.
Derek Flippin' Anderson. Shady McCoy might have.
You talking about the Pro Bowler, Derek Anderson?
Yeah, the guy that led the Browns to 10-6.
Mm.
That same Derek Anderson. However, the only person that will benefit from this is Shady McCoy. The Shady McCoy will get 30 touches on Sunday. Like, he could get that many because Derek Anderson will be incompetent, as he is Derek Anderson. And Shady McCoy is starting to roll. He's starting to get his feet under him. This is his second straight week in a row with 10-plus fantasy points, and I think that will continue.
I hope it doesn't, as a Colts fan. I think this week, after the Carlos Hyde news, getting traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think everyone should be starting Nick Chubb. There's a reason that they knew they could trade Carlos Hyde. Guys, if you don't know Nick Chubb, if you haven't seen Nick Chubb play before, you're in for a real treat here this week against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's terrible defense, probably the worst in the league collectively overall. He gets a nice juicy matchup to display his skills in his first game, only a few weeks removed from 3 carries, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Nick Chubb, start him this week. This is a no-brainer, guys. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, 100%. Same thing for Duke Johnson in PPR leagues.
I'm a little nervous about that one, but
he just got a fair amount of touches. He just got five targets and like a few carries.
Mm-hmm.
So he's. I think they did that also because there's been reports coming out of Cleveland about the discouragement that Duke Johnson's had with his role in the offense. And I think that will benefit him and Nick Chubb because they're both going to be on the field because the Browns have been known to use 2 RB sets. They haven't been going Duke Johnson's way. I think versus the Bucs, you will see Duke Johnson. I think transitioning out of this game into another start, James White versus the Chicago Bears.
We're actually on the opposite side. I have him as a sit, but make your case.
The Patriots' offensive line is not good. Tom Brady masks these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil Mack will be coming off the edge all day. And James White will be running into the flats all day.
Okay.
It is a recipe for Tom Brady to throw 6 yards down the field all day on the Bears. And that's just how people like James White get their points.
All right, well then I might as well go into the sits here, and I'm going to tell you why I think you should sit James White this week. Chicago's looking to bounce back. It was a disappointing loss they just had. Obviously, their defense has been great, but specifically where they have been great is stopping running backs out of the backfield. You know how many yards they're allowing the running backs out of the backfield? 25 yards per game. That's ranked 4th in the league. That I understand where you're coming from is you wonder what the Patriots are going to do against Chicago. I just don't think it's going to be James White. I think maybe they'll be able to run the ball effectively with Sonny Michel, maybe pop one off with Josh Gordon. I don't think this is James White's day. The linebackers on this Bears team are incredible. Their defense is incredible. And I think they know James White's the Patriots' essentially top receiver. I think they're going to have him locked down.
Another sit. I discussed it earlier in the show. Peyton Barber versus the Cleveland Browns.
You should always sit Peyton Barber versus everybody.
He just had a good week.
He's not good.
As long as he's the bell cows are fantasy relevant, and somebody somewhere has
He has not been able to prove that rule to be true, unfortunately, Peyton Barber.
No, but they're all ownable, and enough people own Peyton Barber.
Yeah, I understand. Touches are touches in fantasy football. Yeah, I agree with that. Always sit Peyton Barber, guys. Drop him even.
I wouldn't go that far. Hold off on that.
He's a free agent in our league. You haven't picked him up.
No, he's not. Someone picked him up. I was actually about to.
Oh, well, he was. And he was not even on waivers for a second, actually.
No, I mean, listen. I felt my backs were good enough. But, like, he's not the most attractive option in the world, but he's worth owning.
All right, guys, here's a big sit. I think it's time. Jordan Howard versus New England. Jordan Howard has only eclipsed 20 carries once this year. Other than that, he always gets 15 carries or less. As good as Jordan Howard actually is, I don't think this game flow versus New England is going to help him. On top of that, I think by starting Jordan Howard, essentially, you're basically relying on the touchdown this week. I may be wrong. I don't even think he's eclipsed 70 rushing yards at any game this season.
Twice.
He's eclipsed
If not twice, I know it's happened at least once.
All I know is that he only has 1 touchdown this year. this ain't it versus New England. I think it's going to be a little more Tariq Cohen than it is Jordan Howard, which is a shame because I think Jordan Howard's one of the better runners of the football in the NFL. Sit him, though.
I think it's only a matter of time before Jordan Howard starts rolling again. This could start versus New England, but I also have him as a sit. It's too soon. It's just not the right moment. He plays. If you're a Jordan Howard owner, he's an excellent buy low candidate because he's got to play the Lions twice in the upcoming weeks. He's got he's got a couple juicy matchups around playoff time as well. So, Jordan Howard owners, relax. The high pick you invested in him will not go to waste later on in the season. I assure you of that. Another sit I have this week is Latavius Murray versus the New York Jets.
Of course, you have a sit versus the Jets.
The New York Jets are a top 6 defense.
Mm-hmm.
They have the number 22 pass defense in terms of yards per game. It's just going to be Kirk Cousins throwing the ball a lot, and I don't think Latavius Murray is going to be the beneficiary of that. And if Darnold can keep up with Cousins, I don't necessarily think the game flow has to work in Latavius Murray's favor. I think you're relying on the touchdown this week.
Which actually works a lot more often than we give it credit for, just to put it out there, guys. It's just I hate doing it myself. I will never try to rely on the touchdown. I'll always try to rely on the usage in my lineups, maybe even to a fault. But just I feel like it's an important note, because some people I think rely on the touchdown. I don't think people have a problem doing that.
Plenty.
I don't think people have a problem doing it, and it works a lot. Speaking of relying on a touchdown, Alex Collins versus New Orleans is a sit this year. This New Orleans defense is not good, but did you know that they're allowing 2.78 yards per carry this year? Alex Collins hasn't gone past 60 yards once on the season, and he's averaging 3.6 yards per carry. Without a touchdown, Alex Collins is guaranteed to fizzle this week. And, it's pretty much been the story of Alex Collins for a lot of the season.
Alex Collins has actually been somewhat fantasy relevant because of touchdowns.
Well, of course he's going to be fantasy relevant.
Just this week he is not worth starting in the slightest. I think I've covered a lot of guys in the receiver at the running back position.
Yeah, we can move on to receivers. I'll give my first start.
Okay.
I actually have Corey Davis as a start at wide receiver this week.
Okay, interesting.
He's highly talented. He's highly targeted. Those London games are always in for something weird, right? They're the London game, if I'm not mistaken, 9:30 a.m. Can't be anywhere else. I think he's going to put up some nice numbers against the Chargers this week. The Chargers' offense has been trending upward. Their defense is average at the very best. And I think the Titans are going to have to try to keep up. And if they even come close to keeping up, by default, that means that Corey Davis has 6+ receptions and whatever comes with it. And I think you should start him for it against the Chargers.
Yeah, no, that's a nice one. Because that game, for as much as I think it is going to be low scoring, it has potentially be pretty high scoring as well.
Mm-hmm.
My start at wide receiver is Taylor Gabriel versus the New England Patriots.
Nothing wrong with that.
The Patriots are actually pretty vulnerable to that slot receiver position, that big play guy over the middle. Taylor Gabriel has been on fire of late. The Patriots do one thing really well on defense, and that is stop the other team from doing what they do really well. So what will the Patriots do? They will be double covering Allen Robinson, and they will be trying to limit Mitch Trubisky and his movement outside of the pocket. And therefore, that will just open up opportunities for Taylor Gabriel, and that is why he is a start.
I have Tyler Boyd versus Kansas City. Listen, guys, when in doubt, why don't you just play the Eagles versus the Chiefs? Could we use that as just a general rule of thumb this year? When in doubt, play the guys versus the Chiefs. If you're wrong about it, you were right to do it. They're allowing over 360 passing yards per game, the Chiefs.
Yes.
That's disgusting. Tyler Boyd, it is not A.J. Green, it is Tyler Boyd that leads this Bengals team in receptions this year on only 3 less targets than A.J. Green.
And if I'm not mistaken, yards as well.
If one leads the other, it's by like 20. But regardless,
still worth noting.
Yeah, no, they're both in the mid to high 400s. Tyler Boyd's having just as good of a season as A.J. Green. They're not almost identical, but they're as close as Tyler Boyd and A.J. Green have to be statistically this year. And if you're not all in on Tyler Boyd yet, just this week, guys. At the very least, just this week. Probably going forward, too, most likely. But Tyler Boyd this week versus Kansas City, just take it, guys. Just put him in.
I'm all in on Tyler Boyd. I think he's the real deal.
I agree. I like Tyler Boyd last year as well, but some people, were really on that John Ross train, so...
It's opportunity, man. Tyler Boyd did not exactly have the opportunity last year.
No, he did not.
There were stretches he did, and he wasn't not productive. It's just,
Had him on my team a couple times last year.
Didn't materialize. This year it did.
Mm-hmm.
I have another start this week. There are two starts in New Orleans right now. One of which can work, one of which is boom or bust, and the other is safe. And that's Traquan Smith, and the other is Cameron Meredith.
Cameron Meredith being safe.
Cameron Meredith being the safe PPR option, Traquan Smith being the 3 receptions, 120 yards. Ted Ginn just got put on the IR, and Drew Brees has somebody to throw the ball deep to option. Both can be very productive fantasy football this week.
That's going to be a great game.
Yeah, dude. It's going to be one of the better games. Anytime the Saints go up against another high-quality football team like the Baltimore Ravens, these guys are going to take their shots. It's going to be mano a mano, and I think that's going to benefit one of these two. Personally, I'm betting on Traquan Smith to have the better fantasy game than Cameron Meredith. Cameron Meredith is a much safer, higher floor option.
I think a nice, safe, high floor option this week is Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, I agree.
The Giants have versed NFC South opponents twice this year. That'd be Carolina and New Orleans. Sterling Shepard's had over 70 yards in both of those games. Not that that means too much, but the Falcons are an injury-riddled defense. And the last time he versed the defense in the NFC South that was as bad as the Falcons was the Saints. He had 10 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. On top of that, Atlanta, to the opposing team's number 2 receiver, has allowed either 100 yards or a touchdown in every game since week 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to go right to my lineup and put Sterling Shepard in my flex. I'm literally doing this right now. That is remarkable.
How about we go to sits?
There are a couple more starts I actually wanted to mention. Let's just change my lineup real fast. D.D. Westbrook versus the Houston Texans.
You have him as a start.
Yeah, D.D. Westbrook's a fine high-volume option.
Mm-hmm.
If the Texans do what I think the Texans are going to do, and that's put up points against the Jaguars, Blake Bortles will be forced to throw, and Blake Bortles being forced to throw benefits D.D. Westbrook.
You have another start, you said, correct?
I have a few, actually, that I want to mention.
Get them all in. I have no more.
Josh Gordon versus the Chicago Bears. Kyle Fuller will be shadowing Julian Edelman all game. I believe it will be Josh Gordon that will be the beneficiary of such things. Chester Rogers versus the Buffalo Bills. That game will be a lot more competitive than people want to admit, and Chester Rogers will see another 10-plus target affair.
Half him is a sit, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, but we'll get to it.
AJ Green versus the Kansas City Chiefs. That's obvious. Antonio Callaway versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Antonio Callaway has been getting targeted up the wazoo. It's only a matter of time before Baker Mayfield figures it out, and I think this is the week. Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns offense has multiple fantasy starters this week.
Any more starters that you have at wide receiver? Because if not, I'm going to hit Chester Rogers on the sit and give a little insight on that situation. T.Y. Hilton is expected to play this week. Not sure if you had heard.
I did.
With that, Chester Rogers' role is going to dwindle back down to what it was before the injury. Do I think that's technically right? No, I don't. But Indianapolis Colts have been clear in their usage of him in the past, and this year they don't like Chester Rogers on the outside. They really, when Hilton's there, don't use him for much of anything. They view Chester Rogers as a poor man's T.Y. Hilton. And now that Hilton's back, at least in the Colts' eyes, I don't think he provides them that much value. The Bills are actually allowing less fantasy points to wide receivers than any team not named the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their defense has been surprisingly locked down this year. I don't think anyone saw it coming. And I just don't think Chester Rogers is going to have the same amount of opportunity he's had. I think his time as a PPR stud are pretty much dead for the time being.
Oh man, I wouldn't go that far with it. I think there's still some life left in Chester Rogers, evident by my start selection, but
yeah,
it's a 50-50 chance. His odds of going his boom bust percentage has definitely increased on the bust side.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have to see a lot of targets. I just don't see anybody else in the Colts offense that's willing to step up and take them other than Eric Ebron.
The problem, or not the problem, whatever you want to call it, the thing is with Andrew Luck is that he's willing to throw to anyone, even if they're not taking advantage of their opportunities. They've been feeding Zach Pascal as if he's good for a while now.
Yeah.
And they're going to continue to throw to Zach Pascal, unfortunately. Quite
Even over Rodgers, you don't think Hilton's just gonna take Zach Pascal's role in the offense?
no, because they don't like Chester Rogers on the outside. So what they're going to do is use Ryan Grant and Zach Pascal on the outside. T.Y. Hilton's always going to be in, and now you're going to have Chester Rogers rotating in with Zach Pascal and Ryan Grant on 3 receiver sets.
Mediocre franchises make dumb decisions.
Very much so.
Please.
I might as well.
Oh, yeah.
Another set I have is Marvin Jones. We talked about this. He's clearly fallen behind Kenny Galladay in the pecking order over there in Detroit. Dude hasn't hit 70 yards once. He hasn't hit 5 reception once. The Dolphins are allowing 11 receptions per game to wide receivers. That's nothing. That's some of the lowest stuff in the league right there. You're banking on the touchdown with Marvin Jones. It's touchdown or bust, and I will bet on bust almost every time.
Yeah, pretty much, man. It's just no words can even explain how good the Dolphins defense and how irrelevant that is. How they've been so fantasy helpful. I have Marquise Goodwin as a sit.
That's a fair one. That's fair.
I think, if the Rams can't block, for correction, if the 49ers can't block the Rams, it's not going to give Marquise Goodwin time to get deep on the Rams.
Yeah.
Therefore, Marquise Goodwin should not be started.
Agree with that. I have Jarvis Landry as a sit, and I know on the surface it looks like a must start. I'm telling you, this Cleveland-Tampa Bay game is a trap. For those of you who are waiting for Cleveland to break out, I don't think this is it. I love Baker Mayfield. You know I'm a homer for Baker Mayfield. He's got a bit of work to do in this offense. Jarvis Landry has gotten targeted 67 times this year. He's only come down with 31 of them. And it's only been worse since Baker Mayfield's been the quarterback. It's not great over there in Cleveland. I banked on the Browns doing well last week against the Chargers. They didn't do it. Landry's one of my favorite receivers in the league, but I think right now, until Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry connection shows you something else, you're better off streaming the best option than playing Jarvis Landry this week, at least in standard formats.
I couldn't disagree with you more.
I'm sure.
I think it's... The Browns have had some pretty hard matchups. It's about time they got an easy one.
Well, they do have an easy one. I just don't think their offense is in sync yet. But I'll tell you, if we go right to tight ends, I think you should be starting David Njoku this week. This man right here is the reason I'm saying bench Jarvis Landry. Mayfield, as all young quarterbacks do, I'm just following your rule, James. That's all I'm doing. Has really enjoyed the presence of a big, physical, talented tight end. He's had 23 targets in the past 2 weeks, and that was an 11 and a 12. That's consistency. Also had a touchdown last week. They played terrible last week versus the Chargers. Tight ends on average versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, 12.6 points per game. Standard to the tight ends. That's the most in the league by 2 points. When you're getting that much points at tight ends, you know they're giving them up. David Njoku is going to get a lot of targets this week. Should do something with them against the Bucs, so he's a definite start at tight end for me this week.
Sticking with that, because I also had him there, so I'm going to name another one. Eric Ebron against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
It's pretty foolproof at this point, man. He's going to continue to get looks, and I think it's pretty much matchup-proof at this point.
Yeah, I have Trey Burton versus New England as well. The Patriots have allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends, and that's while this season they have versed the Texans, who don't have a tight end worth noting. Jacksonville doesn't really have a tight end worth noting. Lions don't, Dolphins don't, and they're still allowing the 5th most points per game to tight ends. The 2 tight ends they have versed that are notable are Eric Ebron and Travis Kelce. Eric Ebron had 9 receptions for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns versus them. Travis Kelce had 5 receptions for 61 yards. I think Trey Burton's in for a nice day today, in for a nice game this week against the Patriots.
Austin Hooper against the New York Giants. That is some must-start stuff right there.
Have him as a sit. Just a couple times it's happened today. Have him as a sit. We'll get to that real fast. You can make your case, though.
I just think the Falcons' offense is so high-powered that Austin Hooper may just be the beneficiary of that.
That's fair. Evan Ingram, I actually have versus Atlanta. Welcome back, Evan Ingram. Giants desperately need him making some plays.
Is he officially active?
Yeah, he's been full practice this week. They're injury riddled, the Falcons. They don't have anyone to match up with Evan Ingram. I think he's going to have a touchdown in his comeback game here. And while we were talking about Austin Hooper, I'll just talk about why I have him in the sit section. I don't like the Giants at all this year, as we've already heard. But one thing they have done well this year is defend tight ends. They're only allowing 6 points per game to the position. Atlanta has a lot of ways to beat the Giants. They could beat them on the ground. I think they could beat them with their receivers. Austin Hooper isn't literally the focal point of their offense. I think he benefits based off game plan. I just don't think they really have to deploy Austin Hooper this week against the Giants, so I don't think he's going to get much usage.
I mean, the recent trends would say otherwise, but I see your point. The Falcons can pretty much do whatever they want in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And, it'll just be interesting to see how that plans out. OJ Howard and Cameron Brate, both must start.
Must start.
Unless you have Gronk or something, unless you have a clear-cut tight end that's better.
Well, I have Cameron Brate specifically as a sit.
Really?
Versus Cleveland, and I love Cameron Brate. 3 straight weeks with a touchdown for Cameron Brate. Obviously, him and Winston have great chemistry. But OJ Howard just had 4 receptions, 4 targets, 62 yards and a touchdown. The unfortunate truth of that situation is that OJ Howard is a more talented player than Cameron Brate, and his chemistry with Jameis Winston's fine soon. I think it's about time that the better talent at tight end took over there in Tampa Bay. I actually think Cameron Brate by the end of the season is just going to be a touchdown or nothing type of guy in the offense.
I mean, they utilize a lot of 2 tight end sets about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I just don't think Cameron Brate's going to get peppered with targets anymore. I think that's OJ Howard's to have. I think Cameron Brate will still be a threat in the red zone, but, touchdown or bust. And on that note, I think we should move over to the defense. I have a few defenses to stream this week. I'm going to say Indianapolis versus the Buffalo Bills. Their defense has been surprisingly good this year. And hey, guys, I'm sorry if I guide you in the wrong direction by telling you to play the defense that versus Derek Anderson. We could take this L together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If Derek Anderson lights up the Colts, I apologize. But, I mean, when you're streaming defenses, this is what you look for. You look for a guy like Derek Anderson starting, and you play the defense versus him.
Yeah, exactly. You can't go wrong playing defense versus the Bills. They're decently incompetent in about every facet of football this season, other than upsetting a couple teams, apparently.
Yep.
But, hey, it happens. The solid streamer this week is the Cleveland Browns. Solid streaming option against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Redskins are a solid streaming option against the Dallas Cowboys.
I have Houston against the Jaguars. Bortles is in some sort of slump right now, specifically.
Yeah.
This is beyond me calling him terrible. So I'm talking about specifically what we're seeing from Bortles right now. He's in a terrible slump. I've seen Bortles slumps before, and they are slumps. I think Houston's defense is far too talented to let Blake Bortles come out this week and do it. I think that Houston will be a fine play at defense this week, as well as Detroit against Miami. I think sometimes you just have to let an offense prove that that they deserve your respect. And I think the Dolphins is more one of those teams where I think right now they're playing so bad, I think you just have to wait for them to earn your respect. Until then, they're pretty much just a bad offense that you can play the defense first.
Yeah. I think a good defense this week is the New York Jets.
Mm.
I mean, obviously you're going to look at that Vikings matchup and you're going to be scared, an elite quarterback. But the Jets are on a 2-game win streak. They are at home versus the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings have not looked that great offensively or defensively. They just have not looked that great. They've looked overhyped. And I think this is somewhat of a revenge game for the Jets team that probably feels a little spited by Kirk Cousins in the offseason.
That's fair. I'd say for me, that wraps up everything as far as starts, sits, stuff like that for this week. How about you?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Nothing really else to... I feel we covered pretty much everything. I felt this was pretty productive.
Very productive episode. Hey, guys, we have a Facebook. Run the Gauntlet, right? It has a black background. Is it a green R?
Something
a white
like
T, and then a green G again. Run the Gauntlet. We're posting on there often. Very active. Just like to talk about football, mostly fantasy perspective, but a little bit more sometimes. We have YouTube. Our podcast is released on YouTube on the Game Changer Sports Network. They have an excellent website if you haven't checked it out, thegamechangersportsnetwork.com, guys. We work in partnership with them always. And guys, thank you for listening today. I'm Justin Alfiero. Next to me is
Jimmy LeBeau, and we are Run the Gauntlet. Guys, best of luck. Week 7. If you have any more starts and questions, message us on Facebook. Hit us up any way you guys can. We're always here to answer your questions. Once again, best of luck. Week Peace out.
Peace.